Welcome to Collaborate, the podcast that's reshaping real estate success. Whether you're a new agent striving for your first big win or a seasoned producer ready to break into the top 1%, Collaborate is your gateway to elite strategies, global networks, and industry-changing insights. Each episode delivers actionable advice straight from the top 1% of real estate professionals worldwide. This is where you learn the tools, tactics, and high-level techniques you need to scale your business and unlock financial freedom. Don't just survive, thrive. I'm your host, Trevor, three-time Icon Award winner with over $100 million in sales volume as a solo agent. And if you haven't been invited to the show yet, get your numbers up because this is a space reserved for the elite. Welcome back to another impactful episode of Collaborate. This is the premier podcast for ambitious agents focused on scaling their business. Today's conversation is going to touch on some exciting topics like international marketing strategies, different leadership styles, scaling your personal brand, and an agent's 20-year journey that has solidified her reputation as not just Kelowna's, but one of the world's top teams, currently ranked at number 29 worldwide. Co-founder of the Stone Sisters Group, Shannon Stone, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Trevor. I'm excited.
I really appreciate it. Shannon, you and your sister founded the Stone Sisters Group in 2005, correct?
That's right, yes.
Can you share how this partnership came about and what inspired you both to take the leap?
Well, my sister's older than me, so basically she hounded me. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
But she kind of did, actually. Well, we grew up in a real estate family. So our parents sold real estate here in the Okanagan. My dad started in the 70s. My mom joined in the 80s. And Tamara then joined and worked alongside my parents in the 90s.
Yep.
So she was licensed for 10 years prior to me being licensed.
Okay.
And my parents then retired, so it was just solely her. And, she didn't really actually take over my parents' database or anything. So she kind of just rolled with it on her own. And she'd always been asking me, are you going to come in? You'd be great. You should join. And I was like, yeah, no, I don't think so. So I went and got my business degree specializing in marketing. I did work for a few different marketing companies in different industries across kind of Canada. And once she stopped bugging me is when I approached her and said, I think I'm ready. I think I want to jump in. And as soon as I partnered with her, and we actually worked together for about 6 months before we decided, okay, this is going to work.
Yep.
So for the first bit, we sort of thought, I'll just learn from her. And then we actually didn't know if it would work. So we thought we'll just end up going our separate ways and both be just realtors.
Yep.
And it worked so well. We formed the Stone Sisters, shortly within a few months of me joining and became the Stone Sisters brand and never looked back. It's been awesome.
Was there a pivotal moment where you knew the Stone Sisters Group was going to be something extraordinary?
Yeah, interesting. So we were with a really small brokerage when we first got into real estate. My sister was already there when I first got in, and we were quite small. And I said to her, we have to switch brands. We have to switch companies. Yeah. And she's like, but why? This is where I'm comfortable. This is what I'm doing. I'm like, we have to be bigger. Like, we have to be a company. We're going to run this as a company.
Yep.
So we switched brands. We're now at Remax, and we switched over to Remax at that time. And we went to our first conference. And we were there at the conference. We decided, because we wanted to stand out, that we were going to wear all white, which has now become our signature trademark. We wear all white. I should have been wearing white today. But we wear all white as our trademark. So here we are in Vegas at a conference. Kelowna's a pretty small town. I'd never been to Vegas before. It's all these lights. You can imagine your first time going to Vegas. And we were young. This was 20 years ago.
For sure.
And so we go to Vegas. There's all these people, and it's flashy, and it's good, and we're wearing white. And people are like, are you guys sisters? And we're like, yeah. So the brand started actually at that conference. We looked at each other and we're like, we got to be Stone Sisters, and never looked back, as I said. So
interesting. So from that moment on, how did you approach scaling your business from there?
Through trial and error, to be honest. We made lots of mistakes, like as business owners do. And I think we first started, we had an admin. And so we hired an office assistant who kind of ran everything, and we started branding. I mean, we did a billboard. We kind of wanted to announce, okay, we're here, we're on the scene, we need to be big. So we spent a lot on marketing to get the brand out there, and we're very strategic with it. Yep. And grew from there, and then had an admin, then hired another admin, and then had an agent come and join us who just sort of helped. Actually, she was admin, and then she became licensed and became a licensed realtor. And then from there, we always had the philosophy, because it's kind of scary growing, and any change is kind of scary. I shouldn't say it's growing, but any change in your business or in anything is scary. And you think, well, should I do it? Should I not? And we always came up with a strategy where we're going to test it for 3 months. So whenever we come up with a decision, it's like, we're testing it for 3 months. If it doesn't work, we'll quit. We'll stop doing that. We'll let that person go. Well, as bad as that is, but it's a 3-month rule. So that's what we started to do. We got our second admin. We'll try it for 3 months.
Yeah.
We brought on another agent. We'll try it for 3 months. We'll bring on another one. We'll bring on another one. We'll bring on another one. And it just morphed into the great, group that we have now.
I like your 3-month process. You see a lot of agents, I'm sure you're aware of the shiny object syndrome, where they see one thing and then they think it's awesome and they try it for 3 days and don't see the results they want. And then they see something else and try it for 3 days. And you're never getting anywhere because you're only trying the first 3 days of all these different programs. 3 months is a great, 75 days is what I like to say, where try anything for at least 75 days.
Yes. Yeah, you have to try something because otherwise you don't know. You have to test it in the marketplace, whether that's a new marketing initiative you're doing, whichever it is.
When did you guys start hiring? How did the team start progressing? Because it was just you two to start, Stone Sisters.
Yep.
And then where did the snowball start growing?
Well, it might have been, and again, as I said, trial and error. Remember, we made a lot of mistakes. So we got busier, too busy, and then hired. We should have hired, a lot sooner than we did. But we were basically running it to the point, I can share this with you. Don't tell everybody, hopefully. I mean, this can be broadcasted everywhere. But, it got to the point where a client would phone and Tamara and I would be together. At that point, we went on all appointments together. So we weren't really useful with our time either, which we got a lot better at. But our phone would ring and I'd look at the phone and go, "Oh, Tamara, it's Bob Smith." Tamara would be like, "Who's Bob Smith?" And I'm like, I don't know. Answer it. She's like, "I'm not answering it. Well, you answer it." And then I wouldn't answer it. Then her phone would ring. "Shannon, it's Bob Smith again." I'm like, "Who is that?" So we didn't do it right. We were too busy racing around, just playing catch up. And every day was a gong show, to be honest. We were running. And we got to the point where we're like, we can't do this. And so we hired an agent and created systems, because I think that's something too. And we now are very systemized. We're very planned. We have systems in place for absolutely everything. We meet weekly. We have processes for everything. But it wasn't always like that. And so, it was really out of a need of being too busy and we couldn't handle the workload that we started growing and then just continued to grow. And then we started looking at our business as, we're not realtors, we're business owners. Yep. And I think that was a pivotal moment for us as to, we're running this as a company and we are a business. And so we shifted gears for everything that we do.
Yeah, that mindset shift is a big one, from working in the business to working on the business. Two very different things. Very
different. Yeah.
Absolutely. How many are on your team now?
There's 11 licensed agents and we've got 4 admin, one of which isn't here locally. We've got a BA that's over in the Philippines. So.
Yeah, right on. How do you ensure, when you're bringing agents into your team, how do you ensure everybody's got the same vision you have? Do you have systems in place as far as, if a new agent were to come in and they get a buyer, here's a system for what you do with a buyer, here's a system for what you do with a seller? How do you ensure that everybody's kind of collaborating the same within the group? Because 11 agents is, it's a decent sized group.
So we have Stone Sisters School, I guess you could call it. And we have manuals and processes. Everything's written out. So from you take a buyer in your car, you have water in your car, you meet the buyer at the office. These are the forms you go through. This is what you say. This is how you look. This is what your answering machine says. So everything is truly written out as a manual for what they can do. We also shadow with our agents. So if we have an agent that joins up with us, we want to teach them the Stone Sisters way. And so we shadow with them. So we'll come with them with their first few buyer appointments they go on, or they'll go with some of the other agents that's at the group. Evaluations, we go with them for their evaluations. And until we see that they're at the point they can handle them on their own, one of us is always with them.
Yeah.
So whether that's one of the other agents at the group or ourselves, and we don't just put them out to agents or to clients until they're ready for it.
Yep.
So that everybody, our whole goal is that it doesn't matter if you're talking to me or you're talking to Tamara or you're talking to Todd or Sharon or Christy, you're going to get the same level of service. And so that's our goal, is to be consistent. And I think anyone that's building a brand, the number one thing is building consistency. And that level of service has to be consistent all the way through.
Yeah. So anybody listening, if you're trying to build an impactful brand, hire the leverage as fast as you can, install systems, and be consistent.
Huge. I agree.
Yeah, for sure. You've got a background in international marketing that I think is unique. Share a little bit of that.
So, I worked for a few different companies in marketing. As I said, I took my degree in marketing as well. And so when I joined in with Tamara, and I remember us actually driving around, and because at that time I didn't know real estate, so I was shadowing her, like what we do with our agents that join on. I was kind of shadowing with her. And she's like, oh, okay, yeah, we should probably do an open house. We'll do an open house. We do open houses on Sundays. So you do open houses from 1 to 3 on a Sunday. And I'm like, okay, why? And she's like, well, that's just how it's done. I said, well, why do we do it that way? Like, just because that's how it's done. And that's just one example of kind of looking at things a little differently. And instead, we started doing open houses on a Friday or Thursday, 4 to 6. That traffic that's driving home, because we had some listings at that point that it wasn't necessarily a family property, or if it was, those people were professionals. They were working. They were driving past that area at their end of their day, driving home. So I thought, well, how do we attract them? They're probably not going to want to take a home on their family time on their Sunday. It's probably easier at the end of their day. Stop by for a glass of wine, check out this cool house without the kids.
Yeah.
So we just looked at what we were doing and trying to take off our realtor hat and doing things a little differently. Another thing that we did, and we started doing way back then, is doing what we call little home shows. So we'll pack up information on our listings and we go and actually try to find who that buyer is for those properties. Yep. So because Kelowna is a little bit of a destination location, we're lucky in that. And lots of people come from other areas. We've got lots of people that come from Vancouver, they come from Calgary, from Toronto. So we actually take information on our listings and go to those city centers. So we meet with prospective buyers. We meet with realtors as well so that they can promote those properties to their buyers. We have a coffee table book that we hand out. But back, I think we did our first one. It was probably 16 years ago. I must have been in for a couple years maybe. And it was right when Fort McMurray was really busy. So maybe it was I was only in for 2 years, because it must have been 2006 maybe or something. But Fort McMurray was really busy. And we kept on having buyers coming from Fort McMurray and calls coming in from Fort McMurray. But what we found is they found it really hard to, on their time off, they'd have to come to Kelowna. They couldn't really get here apart from when they had their time off, which they found was hard. But they were making good money. They wanted a place to kind of bank their money and do investments. So I thought, well, let's go to Fort McMurray. Let's make it really easy. For sure. So not knowing at all Fort McMurray, we had a good client that lived there, and he's like, okay, you guys, the white suit thing, it's not going to fly here. So just so you know, like the dress shoes and white suit skirts, that's got to go. So we showed up in white dress shirts and jeans, rented out a Boston Pizza. I think it was Boston Pizza in the back, and had beers and wings, something totally different from any of our other home gatherings. And promoted our properties, sold properties, because people were like, I can't make it to Kelowna. This is awesome. Where do I sign up?
Cool. Yeah. Very, very cool strategy. The open house thing is awesome. This is my first year where I've thrown open houses in the past and had the same thought in mind, where I was like, Saturday, Sundays, and then nobody's showing up. I'm spending all my time. I'm hiring catering companies to come. I've got bubbly and champagne and the soft jazz, and not a soul shows up. And so I did exactly what you did. And I flipped the script, and I start throwing all my open houses now on Thursday nights. Exactly the same, 4 to 6. I'll even sometimes throw an open house the night before the house hits the market, kind of create some urgency. Yeah, if the house is hitting the market on a Friday, I'll throw the open house still on a Thursday night. It's one, the first chance for all the realtors to see the property, and 2, I'll walk the neighborhood and kind of hand deliver invites to everybody in the surrounding area. One is like, I basically say this is just me giving a common courtesy to let you know that there might be some additional traffic on your street due to the house that's for sale down the street. Number 2, you're invited personally. And so it gives everybody this idea that they're getting the first sneak peek at a listing that nobody else has seen before. And
brilliant.
Since I've started implementing that, my open house success rate is like 10x.
And you're meeting everybody else. I mean, the chances are that house sells. One of their neighbors is going to want to sell, because they're going to see what that house sells for. And then you've met them all.
100%. I don't always sell the house at the open house, but I almost always get another listing out of it.
That's amazing. Well done. That's a great idea. I love talking to people ahead of time and telling them about the open house.
Totally. Do you deal with a lot of international buyers? Because Kelowna is definitely a destination.
It is not a ton of international. It's funny because we track everything. That's one of our processes, is we track where all our buyers are coming from, as far as, hits online. Where do we see the inventory, the traffic? And we don't have a ton of international. We're starting to get more coming from the States, of course, just to some degree, but not the same that you would think that we have. A lot of inter-province, like Vancouver moving here, and a lot from Alberta. Now that Alberta's market's doing better, we're starting to see lots of those people that are finally able to sell their houses coming here, even though our price point's higher than what they might sell for. And lots from Toronto, a ton from Winnipeg, actually.
Interesting.
But not as many from overseas. How about you? Do you have many?
Yeah. So, I was just going to say exact same answer. We've got a listing. It's 500 acres, comes with 3 houses. It's listed for 5.5. We had the idea that it was going to do very well in the European market, Germany, Switzerland, because historically the properties in the area that I'm selling in, they've sold to those kinds of demographics. And so we hit the marketing hard. We're marketing in, well, all the major countries in Europe as well as North America. And very little engagement from anything Switzerland, Germany, European, whereas the United States right now is like, I'd say probably 80% of our leads on that property specifically anyways.
Interesting. Very interesting. And where in the States or all over the States?
A little bit all over. So like I said, it's a 500-acre ranch set up for cattle and hay and all this. So we're getting a lot of like the Texas and Tennessee and, the ranch states, let's say. But again, the price and then the dollar difference, right? Where, 5.5 up here is closer to 3 down there. So it's a lot more feasible for, I think, a lot of people.
Absolutely. That brilliant strategy on that. For sure. That makes sense.
Yeah, we tried, honestly, it was the seller who was convinced that the European market was just going to eat this listing up. So of course I did everything under the moon. I'm spending, every week I'm contacting managing brokers and other brokers and other agencies over in Germany and Switzerland. And I'm using ChatGPT to translate everything I'm sending over to them. So it's German or Dutch or whatever. I'm pulling every trick I have out of my hat. And I've gotten like 4 or 5 leads compared to the 85 leads out of the States.
Isn't it funny? Because don't you find sometimes that sellers do look and go, this is who the buyer is. Like, I know. And you're like, oh, I'll try it. But you already know, like your gut's already kind of going, it's not going to be where the buyer's coming from. But, we do these things to appease sometimes our sellers. And sometimes it's like,
well, and I've had it before where it's exactly like you never know. Yes, it sounds crazy that there's somebody in Europe who's just itching for this ranch that's 3 hours out of service in the middle of nowhere. But I've had it a couple times in the past where I'll say, okay, whatever, I'll do it. I'll give it a shot. Yeah. And sure shit, that's what ends up working. So.
Well, and I think also too, accolades to you, it's pretty cool that you can market there. Not everybody can market to the high-end market overseas. They wouldn't even know where or how to start. They wouldn't think of using ChatGPT or all of these things. So I think that's pretty cool that, that seller, maybe their buyer might not come from there, but the fact that they're going around to the coffee store everywhere else and saying, hey, you know what? My realtor is actually translating my listing and promoting it to Germany and Switzerland. Like,
it took it took probably an extra week to put together all of our German marketing and Swiss marketing. And there's 2 specific sites like eMobilen Gen or Home Scout. There's 2 big primary, like our realtor.ca in Germany would be Home Scout 24, or that's like their primary. So I was wanting to get my listings on those sites. And geez Louise, you've got to have a phone number because they want to confirm it through phone. And so you've got to have a phone number, a German phone number. I didn't have that. So now I'm texting or emailing the owners of these platforms being like, hey, I'm not in Germany, but this is what I want to do. And they're like, oh, you've really got to call the number. And I called the number and nobody speaks English. So it's like, there was a lot of ups and downs to try to figure it out. But it's one of those things where once you figure it out, then it's built for the next time, right?
See, now you can advertise all your properties in German, which is pretty amazing, actually.
And I did connect with a couple of English speaking Germans who were quite nice about it.
So that's awesome. Always looking, and I think that's the biggest thing of what we can do is looking at who each of our listings are. Like our listings in my mind is kind of like the product on our shelves. Like if you were in a Walmart or somewhere, that's what our listings is. But if you go down the shampoo aisle, it's very different buyer than somebody that's going down looking for produce or what have you. It's different. And so same with our listings, we have to advertise our listings to different markets. And that's something that I say to our admin team and our marketing team all the time is, who do you think the buyer is going to be for this? Where do they hang out? What social platforms are they on? What do they talk like? What do they look like? Who are they? Now let's go find them and target each property specifically because they're all different.
Oh, absolutely. Do most of your buyers are moving in and around Kelowna or coming from outside of Kelowna into Kelowna?
This year, it was predominantly moving within Kelowna. It was a great time to move up in the marketplace.
Yep, well said.
So we did a lot of advertising, trying to capture those buyers and showcase to them that, hey, sell and move up. This is a great market to do this in. Predominantly, though, for us, for Stone Sisters, we normally get majority of our consumers through out of town. We have a lot of repeat and referral business, so people are always moving within the market. But Vancouver, Calgary, Toronto, again, because Kelowna is a destination, we do get a lot of buyers moving here from other areas.
Oh, for sure. I know that if anybody's moving out of Williams Lake, it's usually to Kamloops or Kelowna.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah. Almost every time.
I have to say, Williams Lake is beautiful. I drove through, my son plays hockey. So we had a hockey tournament up in Prince George. So we drove through. It's beautiful up there. Like the north is so incredible.
It is gorgeous. You've got to be an outdoorsman. You've got to be able to enjoy the outdoors because that's where the most of the activities are, hiking and fishing and biking and whatever you can do, because actual like physical establishments we lack in a little bit. But if you love the outdoors, it's all about it.
Yeah, it was incredible. It was so beautiful. We actually, when we were driving, sorry, and I'm just totally off topic, but
no, this is perfect.
We were driving and we had a herd, I guess you'd call it. We had a herd of wild horses run across the highway.
Oh yeah.
It was like, are you kidding? And then, so we have that, and I yelled. That's like my dream. I love horses. So to have them run across the highway is just the coolest thing. So I was trying to calm down from that as we're continuing on the drive. And then a black bear comes running across the road. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. So yeah, it's pretty cool that you have that right there.
Yeah, it's cool for the first little bit. We've got deer that eat all of the wife's flowers all summer. And then we've got a bear that knocks over our garbage can all fall. And then we've got the rest of the bunch that rolls through. But yeah, it's pretty exciting. If you're not used to it, it's pretty incredible. I mean, we are definitely like the Wild West.
It's so neat. Yeah, I loved it. Oh, I'm so sorry. Thought I turned that on silent, but anyway.
Totally fine. Let's sprinkle in some leadership and some culture. Let's talk about that a little bit, considering you've created such an incredible team. You're often described as the anchor of your team. How does this role influence the way you lead and support your team and clients?
Oh, it was my sister that came up with that anchor of the team.
Nice.
Wasn't me. I guess for me, the biggest thing for me is to stay, as I said, with the brand. It's with everything is staying consistent. When the market shifts, I don't get bent out of shape. I don't get all worked up. I don't stress about it. An unhappy client, I don't super stress about it. I just more look at it and go, okay, how do we solve this? How do we make that client feel amazing when they walk away from us? It's a problem to fix. So if somebody comes to us and in a difficult situation, not that I love those because I don't want anybody to ever be unhappy, but I look and go, okay, here's a way that we can wow this person. This is an opportunity given to us. How do we do it?
Yeah.
And same with the market shift, looking at, our market definitely shifted this past year. Instead of working up about it and going, okay, what are we going to do? Let's panic. And I don't think you can lead that way. You have to be the anchor. You have to be the one that's stable. And instead you look and go, this is an opportunity. Let's pivot. Who do we think is going to be moving? Where is the opportunity in this market? And let's go out and get them. And, I always look at how do I create a positive environment? How do I share with our group that there is a positive side to everything?
Yeah.
And how do we look and lead with the integrity and customer service? I mean, customer service is always the forefront of everything we do. And with that comes, of course, having high integrity. And I think you can't lead a client or provide great customer service if your emotions are up and down.
For sure.
We have to be the ones that are the calm, collected, having them believe in what we're doing and having confidence in it. So I think, by saying that I'm the anchor is I'm pretty even keel and really focused and consistent.
What are some specific leadership philosophies that you would prioritize?
Oh, I don't know. That's a tough one.
I like what you said about focusing on the client service, client experience. I think that a lot of realtors are so honed in on the product where when they get a listing or they get a phone call, they want to learn everything about that product. They want to know the square footage and the size of the garage and that the counters are granite and that the floors are hardwood. Whereas I think that if you focus a little bit more on the person, on the experience, you'll solidify that relationship a lot faster.
100%. And I guess, looking at it as far as a philosophy, it would be really looking at like using that golden rule, treat others as you want to be treated. And I think that's a philosophy. If you're ever in any situation and you look and go, how would I want to be treated in this? How would I feel in this situation? And I say to our agents all the time, put yourself in their shoes. Their house has been sitting on the market. The market's down. They bought at the height of the market. They're losing $100,000. Wouldn't you be stressed? I think so. So let's take a step back, and be compassionate. And I think certainly through this market, that was something we really worked on as a group with our agents, is showing compassion. It was weekly phone calls, weekly check-ins. And a lot of times I had one of our agents say, I really don't like I'm nervous about doing these weekly calls because what do I say? Like nothing's happening. And I said, you say, I got you. I'm here with you. Like, I know this market's hard and I know you really want more activity on it. And I get it. I just want you to know I haven't forgotten about you. I've been thinking about you all week, and we're working really hard, expanding our reach as far as we possibly can to find the buyer for your home. Hang in there. It will happen. And it's just sharing that, we're a team with our clients, and sharing that compassion with them, I think, is how I lead as well. Same thing with our agents as with our clients, like sharing that compassion with them is, I get it. Hang on, we got this.
I think it's important. I've, over the past few months, kind of reformatted my entire business to be based on, I don't know if you've heard of Will Guidara. He's the guy who owned 11 Madison Park. It was the number one restaurant on the planet for a little bit. Anyways, he approached his entire philosophy behind the idea of unreasonable hospitality, of like giving people more than what they expect, finding out which touch points, look at the competition and see all the touch points that they're doing with their clients. Now find an additional 5 touch points that they're not even doing, and elevate them. You know what I mean? And just finding ways to pinpoint the entire roadmap from start to finish. How many touch points am I going to deal with this buyer from here to here? And now at each touch point, how can I elevate it and make it an experience that they've never seen before?
Oh, I love that. And I think that word experience is such a big one, is how do we make sure that they have a great experience? Yes, they're selling their house or what have you. And it's not looking at a client as a number, but how do we make their experience the best way we possibly can? And I love that. Actually, that's a great idea. I'm going to steal that, of looking at all the touch points.
Please do. What are some lessons? Well, actually, what is one lesson you've learned the hard way when it comes to leadership?
Hire slow and fire fast, I would say.
Wow, I like that.
Yeah.
Well said. Elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah. Take your time hiring people that you feel are a good fit. Don't just hire because you really need someone right now to fill that gap. And when you know someone's not the fit, we all know, we get that feeling. We're like, oh, warning bells kind of go off. Let them go. You're doing them a favor too. So, that's something that we've learned. I think you kind of have to have a little bit of thick skin to some degree. And sometimes that can be hard, because sometimes it's those uncomfortable conversations that it's easier to just ignore. But I think you're not doing a service for your business, your brand, or even for that person if they're the wrong fit.
Yeah, absolutely agree. You see so many, not even just businesses, but just situations in general crash and burn because everybody's too afraid to have that hard conversation.
Yes. Yeah, I guess that would be another one along in there, is have those hard conversations.
Yeah.
And something too, I just read a book, Buy Back Your Time. Have you read that book? Dan Martell?
No, not yet.
Great book for any realtor or any business owner. Actually, it's not a real estate book, but any business owner, I would suggest reading it, because it talks about more of the business sort of side of things. But one of the things he talks about is ask what you could do better. Ask your employees. For us, I don't call anyone employees, it's a team member, but ask them, what you can do better. And sometimes people don't want to ask that question because you don't want to find out. Like, again, it's kind of an uncomfortable conversation. What would you like to see from me? Did I do anything that wasn't great? What can I improve on? And it's great to get some of that feedback. So this is the end of the year for us. I start doing our business planning with all of our agents. So I'm sitting down with all of our agents and doing our business planning and just running through their strategies. We have a business plan book that they go through. And, at the end of it all, after we go through what they kind of want and we go through the feedback and everything from their past year, I ask them, so what can we improve on? Is there anything that we didn't do great this year that you wish we didn't, or what can we do? And they're just like, oh, okay. And I'm getting some great feedback. So, it's have those hard conversations. You learn from it and it's all growing, right?
What can we improve on is probably the biggest double-edged sword, because you want the answer, nothing, you did fantastic, but that's not really the answer you want, because that's not constructive. The answer you want is something that you can fix or do better. But I mean, if you're told that there's something you could fix or do better, then it's kind of highlighting the fact that there was something that wasn't quite at that level. So it's such true. A double-edged sword.
It is. You're so right. It's feedback you don't necessarily want to hear. And sometimes maybe you can't do anything about it. Maybe it's one of those things. But I think acknowledging that you care, that you want to hear, that because you do want to hear. If there's anything you can improve on, we all want to know what that is.
Yeah, for sure. Talk a bit about brand building. You've built a pretty recognizable brand in real estate. What advice would you offer to realtors who want to go from local agent to recognizable brand?
I think consistency is probably the biggest one. And I think along with that, when we started building Stone Sisters, I mean, it helped, wearing the white suits. And that is our brand is white. If you go on our website, all of our agents wear white.
Yeah. So,
but to create something that becomes you. The white suit is, yes, it's a white suit, but what does that mean? Well, white is something that's very, it's a color that is honorable in my mind. It's a business color. It's not, there's different colors that resonate with different people and they mean different things as a color.
I've been told white's very approachable.
Yeah, it is approachable. It's open. It's clean. So there was some thought that went into the white. It wasn't just, we both happened to have white suits that day. It was, thought went into it. And I think being consistent is a big one. Finding something that resonates with you and making sure that it's across all of your marketing materials. But make sure it is something that resonates with you. If you don't like dogs, don't run ads with dogs in your ads.
Yeah.
If you don't want to work with, first-time home buyers, that's not really your thing. You can't really connect with first-time home buyers or a younger generation. Well, make sure that your advertising isn't that. Be specific to who you are and truly who you are. And then again, biggest thing I would say with any brand, whether it's in real estate or anything, is consistency.
Yeah, for sure. I read a quote the other day, consistency builds credibility.
Yes.
And that's too true. I mean, if you're consistent with anything, it almost sets the expectation where somebody can go on your social media and see that you wear white suits every day. And then this is what your marketing looks like. And this is how you do all your stuff. That by the time that they meet you, they've already got a set line of expectations where they know what to expect. And you've already basically built that trust without even having to meet them.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And sometimes it's being okay to stand out. Truly, when Tamara and I go to conferences, because we go to lots of different conferences. So I think that's the other thing. You do have to put yourself out there for a realtor if you're wanting to build a brand. And, every time we get dressed, we look at each other and we're like, oh, we have to do this again. We get in the elevator and we're looking and going, oh, I don't feel like doing this. We have to wear the same. Like, it's kind of dorky and you feel uncomfortable. It's kind of like, oh, it's embarrassing, really. And then you get off the elevator and you're like, no, let's do this. We can do it. And everybody's like, oh, hey, I know you guys. It is approachable because it's kind of dorky. So it's okay to stand out and do something and have some fun with it and, let go a little bit, I think.
It's funny. It's probably only one of the careers where fitting in is not the goal.
It's so true. It's so true. You're right. Yeah, it's true. You don't want to wear all black to a conference or any of those things.
Fitting in is not the goal here.
No. But in real estate, I think attracts often personalities that don't want to fit in. Normally it is extroverts to some degree,
Yeah, absolutely.
Trying to be extroverts,
Yeah, well, it's much different than a 9-to-5.
Oh, yeah. You got to be on all the time.
What mistakes do you see agents make when trying to build the brand?
I think even like what I alluded to is, following that shiny object and jumping on each thing, or you had said that in the beginning, and not being consistent with things. I think you have to, if you decide to do an initiative or you decide to do something, make sure you give it time to test. It used to be a client would need to see an impression or something to memorize a brand. They need to see it 6 or 8 times. Now that's going to be much higher because of how many times we're being hit with brands daily on Instagram and, on all social media channels. So you have to be consistent and making sure you're sticking with one thing becomes recognizable.
Yeah, so, totally agree.
Yeah. So that's probably the biggest thing I would say. And be, again, who you are.
Yeah, I love how you ended there. If you to talk, I've talked to a lot of agents, and if you kind of sprinkle in what's the common theme behind all of their success, it's consistency and authenticity.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. Those are perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anything you do differently with the knowledge you have now if you were to restart the whole game?
I would have hired a lot sooner.
Everybody says that. Yeah, absolutely agree.
Yeah. And, it's funny. I'll tell one more story. Do I have time to tell one quick story?
Oh, yeah, we've got time.
Okay. So I'll tell this one story. So it was right in the craziness of us. We had an assistant and it was Tamara and myself. I was pregnant and I was going away for just a week. My husband and I went to Whistler, go to Whistler for a week. And while we were there, and of course, our office is running like a gong show. We don't have the proper systems. It's busy. The market is, I hadn't been in it for too long. The market was crazy. I think it was maybe a year. Anyway, I can't remember how many years in it was, not long. And I'm away. I get this phone call from my sister, and my sister's like, Shannon? I'm like, yeah. She's like, I might need you to come home sooner. Like, okay. I'm thinking, great. And I'm like, why? She's like, our assistant didn't come back for lunch. I'm like, oh, so she just took a longer lunch? Well, do you need me to come home for that? She's like, no, like, she's not coming back.
Oh
I'm like,
my God.
she's gone? She's like, yeah, she left her phone on the desk. Like, I need you to come home. So of course I came home and we figured that out. And again, as we talk about learning things, and our assistant, she was lovely, but just was overworked.
Yep.
So it ended up really well. She apologized, but she just said she kind of had just a bit of a mini breakdown, and it was just too much work. So hire before you get to that point, please. I don't ever want anyone to be in that situation.
For sure.
And have your systems. Don't be scared to learn from people. I mean, you will share with anyone. I would share with anyone. All of us would. We're in an industry where everybody wants to share. I think we're lucky in that most everybody wants to help, and people love to help. So pick people up on that. Ask them, do you have systems? I was just asked the other day, do you have your job descriptions for everybody in your admin? I'm like, sure, no problem. Here you go. Take them. Like, we'll all share. So don't be scared to try to do it on your own. It's been done before. So don't reinvent the wheel. Use the wheel that other people have created, and it works.
So important to say that. You see so many agents get into the game and they've got a competitive frame of mind, where if you can switch that from competing to collaborating, you are going to fly by the competition. Because I mean, it is friendly competition. You know what I mean? Everybody's kind of in it for their own game, and we're all trying to do the best we can. But you talk to any successful agent and they're more than welcome to share their stories with you, or share their strategies, or share their ideas. It's not necessarily the time or era where the doors are closed and nobody wants to talk about what's working. Everybody's more than welcome. I mean, there's the exceptions, not everybody, but a lot of them anyways, a lot of the top agents, a lot of the top producers, they're more than happy to share what got them there, because even though the strategy worked for them, it might not necessarily work for you. You know what I mean? You've still got to have that same level of delivery and conviction that they had that made it work for them. So that's what I found is they're not necessarily so scared to share their strategies anymore, because their strategies only work if you implement them the same way they did.
Totally. 100%. 100%.
After 20 years in the game, right?
Yeah.
How do you stay inspired and innovative in such a dynamic or fast-paced industry? I mean, especially Kelowna.
Oh, I think I love what I do. So I think that's part of it. And it's shifted, even though it's been 20 years in real estate, it's shifted because I was that realtor that was working nonstop. I mean, I remember when my kids were little, I went back to work because you don't get maternity or anything. So I went back to work when my kids were 3 months old. And I remember waking up, spending an hour with them, racing out the door, going to appointments, zipping home, going back out, getting home for dinner, making dinner, going back out to work. Like, it was long days. As we all know, as realtors, it can be really long days. And when the market's busy, you got to just run. So starting from that to now, I'm more in the management side, and I work predominantly on the business, not in the business. Yeah. So even though it's the same industry and it's the same business, it's different. My role has shifted, so that keeps me in the game as well. I love learning. And so I'm constantly reading books. As I talked about a book earlier, I'm constantly going to conferences and different learning events that I can to gather more and change things and tweak things. One of our agents said it the other day. She's like, I just love how we're always changing. She's like, you're never sitting still. We're always looking, what's the next thing? Where do we go from here? How do we shift this and make this better? How do we use the new tools that are here with us in our industry and make it better? So I think as long as you don't allow yourself to stay stagnant, there's so much more to constantly be doing and growing and shifting and changing that it keeps it interesting.
Absolutely. I want to highlight going to conferences or going to events. I think that's a big one. I myself make sure I go to at least 3, sometimes 4, sometimes 5 if I've got a few that are close. But I always leave those conferences or those events with like a fire lit under my butt, like a whole different, my eyes have been open. Like, what have I been doing the past 5 years? How have I not been implementing this? I think that getting into that space and place is so important.
And do you go to all real estate conferences, or do you go to some that are different?
Primarily real estate. Like, I've done the Tom Ferry one and Bill Pipes, and I've done Russell Mortlock. I don't know. He's out of Kelowna, actually. He had a little... Yeah, he had a little thing that went on a little while ago. Me and him were kind of collaborating for a sec there. I attended that, which was awesome. And then I usually go to all the EXP cons. So they've
Yes.
got one in Vancouver, one in Montreal. They just had one in Miami, which was awesome.
Oh, that would be fun. Yeah.
Yeah,
Anytime you can get a trip and write it off.
for sure. They've always done their conferences in Vegas. Same deal. They've done Vegas all the way up until, and so me and the wife went a couple years ago. And don't get me wrong, I loved the conference, but we're not necessarily Vegas people.
Yes.
If I'm going to spend the money to travel, I need there to be a beach or like
yes.
somewhere to just hang out, and that's just hitting the pavement and putting on 12,000 steps. And, didn't really excite me. So we opted to not go to Vegas last year, but then they decided it was going to be in Miami this year. So it wasn't going to miss that.
No, that's perfect. How nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Same with us. We go to real estate ones predominantly. I've gone to a few that aren't real estate related, and they have been really good, actually. So, for any of your listeners, if there is a conference or something that's in your hometown, because often that can be the case, or something that's not too far away, go to it. Like Vancouver has tons that are just business opportunities, business events, and well worth it.
I've got Tony Robbins on my bucket list. I want to hit one of his events. I see them all the time popping up, and people just look like they come out changed,
It's so true. It's so true.
Yeah.
It kind of seems a bit strange. Like when you see some of the videos, you're like, wow, people really get into it. But I think everybody leaves with such energy. It would be, I haven't been to one, but it would be amazing.
For sure. Totally agree. As we squeeze the last couple of minutes out of this episode, I like to end things with a loaded question. One of my favorite questions. What is one of the most impactful pieces of advice you feel you've been given in your career thus far?
Oh, gosh. I don't know. That's a tough one. Impactful advice. It goes back to my dad, probably. As I said, my dad was a realtor, retired now. But he's always been a very savvy business guy. And when I got into the business, he said, become an expert. And I say it to our agents all the time. Become an expert in the market, know the stats. And this is something, I'm a huge stats person. So weekly we meet with our agents and I share them all these stats, not just the normal stats, but I share what each area is doing. What's the average price in that location? Just little things. And it does set you apart. So become an expert, know your market, know who your buyers are, become an expert in the brand that you're building. I think become an expert. It's something that's free. Typically, there's so much information online that you can do, reading the stats and knowing your market. But then if somebody asks you in the coffee store lineup, when you wear your pin of your company, because we all should be doing that, and somebody says, oh, you're a realtor, what's the market like? You can answer with factual, good advice instantly that they look and go, oh, that's insider information. I need you. So that would be it. Have that education, knowledge, and that insider information.
Well, for sure. Knowledge builds confidence. The worst thing that you could ever feel is be asked a question and your answer is, I don't know. I mean, of course, that's going to be your answer for some questions, but you never want it to be your answer. It's the worst answer you could give. So knowledge builds confidence.
Yes. Yeah. Can I ask you the same question?
Yeah. One of the most impactful, this is the first one that comes to mind anyways, but building my career, starting out. So I started at 24 and 29 now. So I dealt with a lot of people. Like I got my license when a lot of my friends were first starting to buy houses and everything. And so when I got my license, I just assumed that all of these friends would obviously be using me as their realtor. And when I got my license and seen that a lot of my friends were using other agents, it made it really hard for me to separate personal and business. And I had a mentor, not necessarily wasn't like a mentor, but another agent that I looked up to anyways, simply stated, take nothing personally. If you can figure out how to roll through business and just take nothing personally, just understand that it's business and this is personal, but take nothing personally, this is business. It's probably one of the biggest ones because I can now accept those losses and know that it's not like a personal loss. It's like, okay, where's the value missing? Like, why wasn't I able to highlight the value that I provide over this other agent? Like that's what's missing now. It's nothing personal. It's business.
Yes. Interesting. I love that. That's some great advice.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's good.
Shannon, well, I want to thank you so much for sharing your journey and insights with us today. It's clear how your passion for real estate and Kelowna shines in everything you do. If I was a listener who was just totally inspired by what you had to say and wanted to learn more about the Stone Sisters group, what would be the best way for somebody to contact you?
So they could reach out to us on our Instagram. So we are Kelowna Real Estate Stone Sisters. We are on Facebook. Our website and all our numbers are on our website. So that's just stonesisters.com.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. There it is. Don't be afraid to reach out. Shannon and her team are all total rock stars. Thanks again for joining us on another incredibly impactful conversation. Remember, guys, this is where our industry's top 1% are sharing actionable steps that you can implement into your business today. Join us next time for another value-packed show. Take care. Thanks for tuning in to Collaborate, where we're not just talking about success, we're building it. If you found value in today's episode, make sure to subscribe and never miss out on the insights that could take your real estate career to the next level. And remember, this is a space for the elite. If you're ready to level up and become part of a global network of top performing agents, join us at the Global Group for exclusive tools, resources, and opportunities to collaborate with the best in the business. I'm Trevor Big, and remember, if you haven't been invited to this show yet, you need to grind harder, hustle smarter, and get those numbers up, because this is a space reserved for the elite.